Dedicate this to Kieran and Celeste if you're out there listening. I showed my love for you with a temporary tattoo, and I washed it off with the dirt. I didn't want it to hurt. Well, I was afraid someday our love would turn blue, and I wanted to keep it new, like a temporary tattoo. You went under the gun to show me how much I meant to you. A little rose with my name, and it was the real thing. You didn't understand, you were wearing the brand of a damn fool, and all that I could do was a temporary tattoo. I tried you on for fun. You thought I was the one. Well, you must be sore. It's hard to ignore a new bruise. Now I'm out of your life, like some Cracker Jack prize. Well, memories fade and traces remain to remind you I was only as true as a temporary tattoo. Yeah, all that I could do was a temporary tattoo. Mr. Johnny Waken on the saw, the one and only. This is the baptism, number 2. The beginning of God written in your face, crying in the mountains, baptize the mountains, the land confessing hair and skin and wild honey, saying, I am not worthy. Water, the Holy Ghost, the French broad river, like a dove descending, a voice saying, I am. Into the mountains with the wild beasts, preaching the gospel, time is fulfilled. Into the sea, come you. After me, come you.
Howdy folks, welcome to Storytime with Johnny Waken. I'm Johnny Waken. So sit back and relax and lend me your ear. Tonight we'll be reading from Gone to Texas by Forrest Carter, page 59. The open buckskin jacket revealed something more that made Lone step confidently from the brush and approach him. It was the shirt, linsey-woolsey with a long open V that ended halfway down the waist with a rosette. It was the guerrilla shirt, noted in U.S. Army dispatches as the only true way to identify a Missouri guerrilla. Made by the wives, sweethearts, and womenfolk of the farms, it had become the uniform of the guerrilla. He always wore it, sometimes concealed, but always worn. Many of them bore fancy needlework and bright colors. This one was the plain color of butternut, trimmed in gray. The man continued to rub down the roan, even as Lone walked toward him, and only turned when the Indian stopped silently a yard away. "Howdy," he said softly, and extended his hand. "I'm Josie Wells." "I have heard," Lone said simply, grasping the hand. "I am Lone Waddy." Josie looked sharply at the Indian. "I recollect. I rode with you once, and your kinsman, General Stan Waddy, crossed the Osage and up into Kansas." "I remember," Lone said. "It was a good fight." And then, "I will stable your horse with mine down by the river. There's grain." As he led the roan away, Josie pulled his saddle and gear into the cabin. The floor was hard packed with dirt. The only furnishings were willows laid along the walls draped with blankets. Besides the cooking utensils, there was nothing else, save the belt hanging by a peg that carried a Colt and long knife. The inevitable gray hat of the cavalry lay on a willow bed. He remembered the cabin after wintering at Mineral Creek, Texas, near Sherman, in '63. He had come back up the trail and had camped there. They had been told it was the farm of Lone Waddy, but no one had been there, though there was evidence left of what had been a farm. He knew something of the history of the Waddys. They had lived in the mountains of North Georgia and Alabama. Stan Waddy was a prominent chief. Lone was a cousin. Dispossessed of their land by the U.S. government in the 1830s, they had walked with the Cherokee tribe on the 12 tiers to the new land assigned to them in the nations. Nearly a third of the Cherokee had died on that long walk, and thousands of graves still marked the trail. He had known the Cherokee as a small boy in the mountains of Tennessee. His father had befriended them, who had hidden out, refusing to make the walk. The mountain man did not have the land hunger of the flatlander who had instigated the government's action. He preferred the mountains to remain wild, free, unfettered by law and the irritating hypocrisy of the organized society. His kinship, therefore, was closer to the Cherokee than his racial brothers of the flatlands, who strained mightily at placing the yoke of society upon their necks. From the Cherokee he had learned how to handfish, easing his hands into the bank holes of the mountain streams, tickling the sides of the trout and bass. That the gray fox runs in a figure 8, and the red fox runs in a circle. How to track the bee to the honey hive, where the quail trap caught the most birds, and how curious was the buck deer. He had eaten with them in their mountain lodge pole cabins, and they had brought meat to his own family. Their code was the loyalty of the mountain man with all his clannishness, and therefore Lone Waddy merited his trust. He was of his kind.